Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of 366 2020. I'm trying to watch 366 movies this year. It's going all right. Let's talk about 3 more of them. The Invisible Man is directed by Leigh Whannell and stars Elisabeth Moss in a spellbinding performance. I just imagine Jason Blum and Leigh Whannell having a meeting with the kids at Universal, and Universal execs saying, hey, we're trying to reboot The Invisible Man. You want to do that? And they said, not really, but we'll make something cool along the same lines. And that they did. As this movie begins, we see Elisabeth Moss's character escaping from an unhealthy relationship. And you can tell by the care she had to take and the step-by-step process that she goes through that this was not a knee-jerk decision at all. This was months in the planning. Her boyfriend has a very high-tech house. He is a tech billionaire of sorts. And she has to escape this house, which has multiple security systems, lots of security cameras, but she knows every step and everything she has to do along the way to be successful. Even though she makes one somewhat bad mistake. She gets out of the house and goes with a friend's house and lives with them. But she is afraid that because this relationship was so abusive that he will come after her. And because he is a genius in the world of optics, that he will find a way to get to her without her knowing. And that is where the movie pulls off its best magic trick. We know the movie's called The Invisible Man. She knows that her ex-boyfriend has the power of optics, but isn't really sure if he's around, and everybody around her thinks he isn't around at all. So we have this layered relationship with the film as viewers, and she has a layered relationship with the people that surround her. And watching this play out, is it all in her mind? Is it actually there? Is a lot of fun. And this film is shot in a way with a lot of negative space where there's not much happening. There's a lot of times where the camera will pan over to a different location where Elisabeth Moss is not, and just sit there for 10, 15 seconds before she enters the frame. So it sets up the situation where he could be anywhere. And that's a great way to convey the paranoia that she has into the viewer. We never know where he's going to show up. Or if he's going to show up. Is this all in her head? Is it just her playing out the end of this bad relationship? As viewers, we don't know at first. So the majority of this film is Elisabeth Moss crumbling from within, trying to convey her terror to other people who don't believe her. And her performance is what makes this movie great. She's amazing in it. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. The performance from Elisabeth Moss is what drives this movie. It's a very unique vision of how to do an Invisible Man movie. It was just a very interesting film to watch and watch play out. I really dug this movie. Like I said, they could have done it the Universal Monster way, or they could have done it this way, which is infinitely more interesting. Fyre Fraud is a documentary film as well as a fun play on words. This is the Hulu version of the Fyre Festival story. There's another documentary on Netflix about the same thing. And that thing is the Fyre Festival, which was created by fraudster Billy McFarland and everyone's favorite, Ja Rule. I love that clip. If you haven't seen the DTMS for Turn It Up, after this is over, the link's in the description. It's one of my favorite DTMSs. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, the Fyre Festival was an epic fail of a music festival that was held on an island in the Bahamas. Everything went bad. And they ended up scamming a bunch of people out of some money. Mostly rich millennials, so there was a lot of schadenfreude going on online when this all happened. What this movie shows very well is how the stage was set with very rich millennials trying to be the next Instagram star, how this was just ripe to happen. Fyre Festival, at its core, was a super filtered, super oversaturated Instagram picture in real life. Everything looked great, but at the end of the day, wasn't. Outside the frame, there were dumpster fires. I don't think this metaphor is working. I don't think this movie is as compelling as the one that's on Netflix. The one that's on Netflix was done by the promotions company that was hired by the Fyre Festival to promote for them. So there's a ton of behind the scenes footage. They have just a ton of material to show you. But what this movie has that movie didn't is Billy McFarland. An actual honest-to-God interview with Billy McFarland before he went to jail. And even though Billy McFarland's answers are unsatisfactory in every regard, it is interesting to hear the scamster himself speak about this fraud. I think watching both of these films gives you a bigger sense of the larger picture at work here, but this definitely adds to the story. It does not subtract from it. Hey everyone, Scott from the future here. I didn't like the way I talked about this movie, so I'm going to reshoot it. The Amazing Johnathan Documentary is a documentary about the Amazing Johnathan. He was an illusionist slash comedian, had his heyday in the late 90s, early 2000s. Had a special that was very popular on Comedy Central at the time. I remember watching it multiple times. Hilarious stuff. And the movie is about this documentary filmmaker, Ben Berman, being invited to join Johnathan as Johnathan tries to mount a comeback. And the Amazing Johnathan is mounting this comeback because he has been diagnosed with a heart condition and was only given 1 year to live. Interesting thing is, this movie's being shot 3 years later. So Ben Berman is following the Amazing Johnathan around, seeing his day-to-day life. The Amazing Johnathan is in not great shape, addicted to drugs. And at one of the comeback shows, the Amazing Johnathan reveals to Ben Berman that he has invited another documentary film crew to follow him around during this comeback tour. This film crew is connected to some Oscar-winning movies. So the movie becomes this exploration by Ben Berman to find out exactly what's going on here with this second crew. I found this movie hard to get a handle on, mostly because after a while I didn't know what was true or not. And when I say that, I mean the film as a whole. I compared it a lot in my mind to Exit Through the Gift Shop, and that film is a kaleidoscope of truths and falsehoods, but it's easily explained away by the director credit. It was directed by Banksy. And when you see it was directed by one of the most subversive current-day artists, it's easy to explain away the falsehoods and what's true or not by just saying, well, it was an experience orchestrated by this great artist. This documentary does not have that luxury. I don't know Ben Berman, so I don't know if I can trust him or not. I don't know if I can trust the Amazing Johnathan or not. So the movie just becomes this mix of what's true, what's not, what can I believe, what can I put stakes in. The whole thing's a bit of a mess to get your head wrapped around. And the movie somewhat addresses this by doubting the Amazing Johnathan's condition. You're kind of a jerk. And that kind of spins into Ben Berman, that the only way Ben Berman has a movie here is if the Amazing Johnathan dies, and that's pretty bleak and dark and wrong. And I like that the movie addresses that these documentaries about people who have conditions are only true stories if they pass away, which is pretty morbid, but the reality of a documentary film of this sort. But having said that, having two unreliable narrators within the film was pretty frustrating. I didn't know who to believe, so I just ended up not believing any of it, which I guess is a bad take on my behalf, but it's the only take that they allowed me to have. So that's it for this episode. Have you seen any of these movies? I will see you down in comments, and I'll see you on the next episode where there's going to be 100% less documentary films. Promise. Thanks for watching. Fewer. I meant to say fewer.